Welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, my friends. The podcast about all nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts. That's Blake. I'm Will. And today, we're here to talk a little Spin the Bottle, aka Critical Role, episode 104. I don't know the episode title, unfortunately, so Spin the Bottle. Do you happen to know?
Cages? No, that was a previous one. I literally was just looking at it. Yeah, it is Cages. Wait, no, it's not. That was the previous one. What's the episode called? Who knows?
We're off to our classic good start here. What the people came to see.
You know, people grow and change over time, and I need you to understand that we will not.
No, we're not going to betray y'all like that, you know?
Yeah.
We're not going to get corporate and sell out and, have a level of professionalism. That will never be us.
I mean, if we got like $1 million, I would sell out a little bit. Like, I would like to eat a full meal.
Well, are we splitting the million, or are we each getting $1 million?
So if we split it, we don't sell out. But if we do,
well, I just in your head, I didn't know if the $1 million was your personal number. So meaning we'd need 2 million.
I think $1 million's fine.
Okay.
If anybody's listening with $1 million,
we won't turn it down, I guess.
Yeah, we'll take any amount between $1 million and 2. So this is called The Cradle's Convocation.
Okay.
By the way,
there we go. We're back on track.
I'm glad we went through all that just to get that.
But yeah, okay. So that's what we're here today to do, as always. But just, per usual, quick couple of announcements before we launch in. Join the Discord. It feels like we haven't had a break in forever, but I guess it's because of Downfall.
Yeah. I think that's right.
Because I guess that thought came out of nowhere, but my thought was going to be like, oh, there's not an episode this week, but I don't know why I would think that, because there definitely is tomorrow.
Yeah.
So join the Discord, and we'll be having our classic watch party there. And also in the Discord, this Friday evening, we will be having our one-shot DM'd by our illustrious host here, Blake of Husk and Seed, which not to steal your thunder if you want to launch into that, but that'll be happening 7 p.m.
I think we said 7. Let's see. The events say 7 o'clock. Yes.
So yes, that is 7 p.m. Central. Yep. That's our time. But like Blake mentioned, there's an event in the Discord, and that will convert to your local time zone. So if you want to see when that is for you, we've got 5 players from our community that will be 6 players playing through a one shot, which the last time we did, I know it went 7+ hours. I don't know what the expectations for this one are, but
the expectations are for me to be a better DM. And
no, you were a fantastic DM. A long session is the sign of a good session,
That's true. Yeah, it's 2 hours in. Well, I think we did it. I think we're good. So
let's wrap it up. But yeah, so again, Friday night, that one shot will be happening. If you join the Discord while it's going on, you are welcome to watch. I was going to say participate. That's not true. You can watch, though. Only those in the session can participate. But
anyone can just jump in and start.
Yeah, just bring your dice, have some fun.
Yeah.
But that will be the only time, I think, that you'll be able to see that, because we're not going to host that on YouTube.
Right. We'll try to put the audio up on the podcast. But I did tell the party they have veto authority. So if someone has like a nervous breakdown, they're like, please don't publicize this. I'll be like, you got it, man.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But yeah, so maybe podcast version available at some point. But if you'd like to make sure you see it, if you're interested in that, then be sure to join the Discord Friday night.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, anything else?
I think that's it.
Alrighty, y'all. Well, in that case.
Wait. Hang on. Sorry.
No worries.
All right, go ahead. You're good.
Okay.
That was a quick, tiny little break.
Gotcha. Well, in that case, y'all, you guys know the drill by now. We are going to launch into our recap of Critical Role episode 104. Before we hop into our discussion, we cut that out. We host it separately. So if you're just on that recap video and you want to see our full thoughts, then we will link it down in the description below. But without further ado, episode 104, the Conclave. The cradle?
Cradle's convocation.
The cradle's convocation. Sorry, I got too much Worlds Beyond Number on the mind right now.
Yeah.
So the episode begins with Bell's Hells basically barging in on this meeting of Exandria, because basically all of these different kingdoms and factions are represented here within the Platinum Sanctuary in Vasselheim. And basically what they're talking about is what to do with this entire situation of the Solstice and Ludinus and Prodathos. And um, there are all of these, again, important people: Jamansa Ord, the Bright Queen, Keyleth. Basically, everyone is represented here. And Matt describes that the person speaking right now, and I'm probably going to butcher this, is Galfeed of the Ember Vigil, which Imogen recognizes as being the Archmage of the Sugwaras, capital of the Talent Highlands. Again, bear with me on those pronunciations. But basically everyone is arguing about what exactly needs to be done here, and some fear, like, what if we take too long and the gods break out of the divine gate and just lay ruin to everything, because we've kept our hands tied too long. And at that statement, Ashton just laughs. And it's at this point that everyone turns their heads towards Bell's Hells. They wonder, like, who are these people? And at that point, Keyleth kind of speaks up and vouches for them and says, this is Bell's Hells. They've been out in the field while we've been here just arguing. She then projects a vision, an illusion of the Hellcatch Valley that shows where their encampment had been and how it's basically just been destroyed, and it's been terraformed, where now around the Malleus Key there is like this fortress that has sprung up like almost instantly. And Keela says, we have to act now. Jaman Ord says, I agree. I stand with them. Like, who else stands with us in taking steps and doing something about this? And Bell's Hells obviously say they are in. So does the Clovis Concord. But then arguments again turn to, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to wipe out everybody up there? Because as Bell's Hells interjects, there are innocents. There are Ruidians up there that aren't part of this conflict. There's a whole world up there, a whole ecosystem. Because again, they've been up there, which Keyleth vouched for. So Bell's Hells kind of take a moment to explain everything that they saw while they were up there. And that includes their vision of downfall that they had in Aeor. Basically, they give everybody the recap, the Pixelist recap on the last 5 to 10 episodes. And after they say the downfall information about how the gods banded together and struck down Aeor, the Holy Curator's response to that is good. They deserved it. Like, the gods did what they had to do, basically. And before they launch into a big, deific debate, Keela says, I know this is important to discuss, but we also need to make sure we take into account the lives of these innocent people on Ruidus in our decisions. And in order to speak to that, she introduces this hooded figure next to her, who is Ivaroa, the Boromodo that Bell's Hells rescued on Ruidus. And so Ivaroa gets up and speaks of her life on Ruidus and basically how everything is there and how they've lived under the tyranny of the Weave Mind, who are working with Ludinus. She says she will offer any insight and help she can in return for consideration being taken for her people, that they won't just be, mindlessly killed with the rest of Ruidus. Bell's Hells, of course, back up everything Ivaroa is saying. And a member of the Cerberus Assembly then steps up and is like, well, how do we know we can trust you, Bell's Hells? And of course, everyone thinks that's really rich coming from a member of the Cerberus Assembly. But he makes the point of, Ludinus was even able to sway members of the Assembly. Like, how do we know, like, you aren't secretly working for him? And it's when this argument starts to get going that High Bearer Vord steps in and is like, everyone's tired. We're all antsy right now. Let's take a rest for the night, adjourn, and then we'll convene with our respective circles and then meet back tomorrow and discuss this fresh. So the meeting adjourns at that point. Bell's Hells then go meet up with Keyleth. There's a little bit of small talk with Pike and Grog and some fun moments there. Vexalia de Rolo is also present. And the main thing they talk about there is how they trapped Delilah, which of course the members of Vox Machina are very interested to hear about. Vex in particular is very happy that she has been caged within Laudna. But then Keyleth takes Bell's Hells on a walk out of here towards the Birth Heart, which is an area of Vasselheim basically dedicated to the Wild Mother, the Birth Heart being this massive tree. And specifically, they just basically give Keyleth the full download on what happened in Aor, what happened with the Downfall, 3 episodes, and just what do they do? Whose side are they on here? Can they trust the gods? Should they help them? Basically, these same kind of philosophical debates they've been having largely for the entire campaign. And the conversation eventually turns to the fact that Keyleth has literally spoken with the gods before. And Bell's Hells is very interested in that. But even still, Keyleth recognizes the humanity in the gods. They're not perfect, and she, for one, isn't even that religious. Save for the Wild Mother. That's like the one she kind of rocks with. And as she's saying this, they walk up to this massive Birth Heart tree, and Orym in particular is kind of stirred by it. So much so that he takes out his sword Seedling and kind of places it between 2 of the roots and kneels down to pray, essentially. And when he does this, these vines completely envelop him in like a cocoon. And that's essentially where we go to break on the first half.
Yeah, so coming back from the break, we basically have the party all like seeing Orym like disappeared. Like, what do we do now? And then we get a cut over to Orym, who is in the essentially the Wild Mother's plane, and finds himself in this beautiful, like ever-reaching like plains and forests and wildlife and like this gorgeous domain of nature. And before him is essentially the Wild Mother. I think Matt describes her as being a combination of like vines and branches and like a large tree with like flowers and a face. Notably, the Wild Mother doesn't speak, which, by the way, is typically how Matt has acted out this character in the past. But Orym essentially pleads on behalf of his party and on all of humankind and is like, hey, like I know you're flawed. Like, we're basically trying to do our best. Like, help me understand like what needs to happen moving forward. From this conversation, there's a number of emotions that the Wild Mother is going to show, but ultimately the Wild Mother is going to give Orym a vision of essentially the day that Predathos was banished entirely. The vision includes all of the gods together with a star coming and crashing onto, I don't know if it was an island or like just like a plot of land, but essentially it is the vision extends to this plot of land then being lifted up into the air and being encased as essentially the red moon and being cast off into space. And Matt also describes like the screams and the people who would one day become Meridians who were cast out with Predathos, basically. Something of note here in this vision is that Orym is asked to make a wisdom saving throw. He fails, and then Matt gives a very cryptic line of essentially something to the effect of something in you has been broken, or another way to put it would be something in you has taken root. Which, what the heck? Orym comes back to Vasselheim, and essentially in coming back shares like, hey, this is what I saw. There's some chatter around like what could this mean, but ultimately they decide, okay, this is a great data point to inform our at dawn we plan discussion that's going to be happening at the Trial Forge in the morning. Before they leave, though, a couple of things happen. Chetney gathers up a couple of the branches of this tree. And then also Orym removes his sword from the tree and notices that the short sword seems to have changed into a long sword. And Matt hands over the identification of this now exalted form of Seedling, and basically says that this is a modern day vestige of Divergence known as a relic of the Red Solstice. and basically says, it would make sense for it because it's not from the divergence, but this is one of the many items that the deities themselves have chosen to empower during the span of this solstice. Naturally, the cast just goes crazy. They're like, we have to collect all of them, as any good D&D player would. And basically, they go back to rest for the night. And as we've seen happen many times that there's downtime, the party basically talks about what should we do next? What do we think about Ludinus? What do we think about the gods? Kind of like the age-old conversation that they're going to have. And they do ultimately decide maybe we should go take out the Bloody Bridge. Like maybe that's the next best path. They end up tabling that as the conversation is kind of fizzling out. And they decide let's play a drinking game, basically. This is like a shenanigan form of truth or dare and also spin the bottle. There's a moment where Matt's like, I don't even understand the rules of this game. But basically the way it works is you're asked a question, and if you opt not to answer the question, you have to spin the bottle and kiss whoever it points to. Discord did demand that I say every single combination of kisses that happen here. I will not do so, only because I don't remember all of them. Though we do get a funny moment of Dorian and Chetney, who were once quasi-rivals early on in the campaign, so that was a bit funny too. But some questions of interest that were asked. Ashton was asked basically like, "Hey, you've been the most like open about being standoffish to the gods. Like, what do you think about all this? And essentially, do we have to worry about you?" And Ashton basically says, like, while I feel the way I do about the gods, I agree that Ludinus needs to be stopped. Other questions, I think, to Fern and Imogen in particular about them being Ruidus-born and basically being like, hey, like, would you ever conspire with Ludinus? Like, do we need to worry about you? And Fern, who I think they had done like a zone of truth during this, Fern actually beat the zone's DC. And I think opted to kiss, actually, not like in a cryptic way, but it was pretty clear that, yes, you can count on me. However, I still want to opt to do the spin the bottle. And then Imogen also basically says, like, yeah, I'd be totally comfortable with you guys taking me out if I did change sides. Probably the most important question we get, though, is one from Laudna to Dorian of basically, hey, how are you? Like, how have you been doing since your brother died, which was only a few days prior? And we get one of the most beautiful speeches, honestly, in my opinion, of the campaign from Dorian, kind of just talking about his feelings in this moment. And basically just being like, like there's a mission ahead of us and like we have to continue on. So the night simmers down, everyone goes to bed. However, we do have Ashton go to Fern, and they basically begin to make out as the night ends. In the morning, they get up, they go to the Trial Forge. There's a number of people here. This is like the smaller group of like their company. You have Keyleth, you have Allura. I don't remember who else was present in this, but it's basically like
the Bright Queen was there.
Thank you. And there is also a moment, I'm glad you mentioned that, because there is a moment where Ashton, after being told to be subtle about his condition of his head, like, I can't remember if he burned a rage or not, but like spins up his skull. And the Bright Queen basically is like, yeah, we're going to have to, investigate this when this is all said and done. Which Ashton's like, great, nothing bad could happen from that. But separate from that, though, there's all these conversations of like, hey, so here's the Bloody Bridge. Oh, and there's these other variables. We know that Ludinus is getting close to the core. We assume that someone Ruidus-born has to be able to pass through this veil that's guarding the core. And we also know of Oso Kruth, who is guarding the Bloody Bridge. And there's still the Weave Mine to take care of. And Keyleth is basically like, okay, we can't deal with all of these things because if we take care of one, it's going to alert all the others. So the only best path forward is going to be doing a 3-pronged attack, 3 different groups attacking each of these places. And she's like, I think I know just the people who could help with this kind of stuff. But for Bell's Hells, we need someone who's Ruidus-born who can go to the core, and you have 2 people on your party who are Ruidus-born. So that part's going to be for you. The meeting adjourns with the plan to kind of bring this plan to the greater group later in the day. And then as they're leaving, Imogen feels this pain in her head. She gets like this vision of sort of the storm we're used to, but it's settled a bit. And she hears a seemingly almost optimistic voice of Liliana saying, Imogen. And that is where the episode ends. Episode 104. The Cradle's Convocation. And if you're watching just our recap, we want to know what you thought about the episode. So click the link below to see our full episode thoughts and theories. And that was the ep.
Pop, pop. Well done.
You too, my friend.
Well done. Really fun episode. I was sad I wasn't able to watch this one with everybody.
Such a fun episode. I love how we said we wouldn't do this anymore. And like as of last episode, now we're doing this again.
Yeah, we're back.
Here's the deal, guys. We would not dedicate endless hours for something we didn't adore. So you want the unbiased view, you're probably not going to get it here. So.
But just in general, I thought it was a fun ep. We got a little bit of everything except combat, I guess. But it had a good time, and it ran the gambit of emotions, I guess is what I should say. Because we had the crazy zany, spin the bottle stuff. We have like the preparing for war, and then I'm glad you even mentioned it, but Robbie's little monologue was
man.
So good, man.
Jeez. He's so good.
Yeah, and I just like the fact and not Critical Role scripted, we all know that, but I'm curious like if that was truly just like, because I mean he didn't know that Laudna was going to ask him that, but on some level he might have known that was going to come up at some point. So I wonder if he had an idea of what he might say when that came up, or if that was all just improv, because doesn't matter either way. But if it was improv, it's even more impressive. Which I'm sure in either case, it was still improv, but you guys know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that was great. And yeah, a few different things I want to talk about for this ep, but had a good time for sure.
Yeah, it didn't encompass it all, including the spin the bottle, like truth or truth.
Yeah.
Very typical D&D of just like smashing games together and being like, yeah, this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Oh, and then I don't know if this is a good starting point, but did you see the cooldown by chance?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, great. So we did mention in the recap, but it seems, and I'm going to say it's not set in stone because I think Matt's open to whatever the party wants to do, but seemingly the path forward is going to be the campaign coupled with a couple of one-shots, for lack of a better phrase, of Vox Machina going to the Bloody Bridge and rescuing Vax, essentially. Which, by the way, I was going through some of our older content, and I found a section in one of our videos where you were talking basically this exactly of, like, what if Vox Machina comes in and they want to go, it's like a rescue Vax mission or what have you. And I know there was even an April Fool's thing around that too. But so seemingly that, and then the Mighty Nine going to Ruidus to take on the Weave Mind, while the main campaign, Bell's Hells, goes and fights BBEG Ludinus, which kind of crazy to have all these things converging, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like that would make the most sense, what you just described, where we get like one shots of that happening. And again, that's likely what Matt meant, but the way he phrased it made me wonder if like in C3 episode 109, like the players would shift, like 30 minutes of you as Bell's Hells. Now we're transitioning to you as Vox Machina, like all in the same episode.
I think it'd be too clunky.
It would be crazy for sure, which is why it probably is the one shot idea, but that would like, and it would have to be like such a long episode too, I feel like, to really facilitate that. But that would make it a little bit more, if all those events are supposed to be happening simultaneously, that would like represent that a bit better. But I guess you do kind of have the nice little in-universe explanation of like leyline weird magic, to where like, oh, we're not in communication with the other, like we can't be in communication with the other groups, so like we just have to stay singularly focused on what we were doing, and that way you could kind of keep it like self-contained without having to worry about like what happens with the other groups. But yeah, in either case though, what a cool idea. Very much feels like the Avengers like level meeting of these three campaigns coming together, which is just fun that they're doing that, you know?
Yeah. And someone mentioned they talked about it in the Discord too. And then we also talked about it, months ago. We talked about forever ago. We've talked about it many times actually, like this kind of crazy power disparity of like how could this be dealt with? And we threw out the idea of like maybe we'll have like an Avengers moment. It seems to be happening. I think I'm a little sad because this was probably the clearest signal to me that the campaign is coming to an end. Not necessarily like in the next 5 episodes, but like it definitely felt like a signal of like, hey, we're in our last, however long, whatever batch of episodes that is, like our last. This is the last batch, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. It definitely definitely feels like the climactic battles would be those three missions largely, unless they fail, like unless Predatos still gets out or something, then maybe there's like more to happen after that. But if
I
they
could
are
totally see that.
successful, then it would feel like, if not like the very end of the campaign, definitely the final boss. And then there wouldn't be like, it would just be like
Yeah,
what is it called? The descending action or whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
falling action.
Yeah, falling action.
Yeah.
Falling action and like the resolution. But
Also known as episode 10 of every Game of Thrones season.
yeah. Uh, but yeah, I mean, so again, who knows? And maybe there's something like maybe Predatos gets out and that's a whole other thing to be dealt with. But it does feel like we're in the third act.
Yeah. I'm just sad.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking about it and I was like, man, we've done this campaign for a long time. It's been a few years, I think, this fall. And it's been good. It's been amazing. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. But you know how things are when things come to an end. It's,
Yeah,
well,
sad. For sure, man. I feel like I've maybe told you at random points, but like that final send off from Matt on the last episode hits different, man.
mm,
It's very bittersweet. And just like we're seeing Vox Machina and Mighty Nine again, we'll see Bell's Hells again, even after the campaign ends, but it's obviously not quite the same. But you know what? Then campaign 4 comes around and you'll never feel the same, but it'll be fine.
what's
But
it
yeah,
what
I totally feel you.
what's it like for you with this seemingly Avengers get together, the culmination of like these previous two campaigns, everyone coming together for like this final hurrah. How does that hit for you as someone who's seen the first two
Yeah,
campaigns?
it's just really cool, right? I mean, similar to the Avengers, like it's cool to see it all come together. And I just think it's must be so fun for them to do this, especially in light of the animated shows and stuff. Like, can you imagine when we get to this point when they get to bring back Vox Machina and bring back the Mighty Nine? It will like quite literally be like an Avengers moment for viewers of the show. So I wonder if they even like, not that that would inform Matt making those decisions, but I have to think that's like somewhat in their brains now of
Oh yeah.
like, now that we have these opportunities, like what are some really like fun and cool things we could do with this
Hmm.
empire? So, yeah, I mean, I'm here for it. I was so excited to see Grog last episode. And
That's groggery,
yeah, Groggery,
by the
that
way.
was incredible. Um,
Oh, I have a question, by the way, and I just haven't Googled it because I'm just now remembering it. Is
yeah.
his last name Stonejaw or Strongjaw? Because I
So
think I heard both.
that's kind of an inside joke. Um, Strongjaw is his
That's
last
what I
name,
thought.
Grog Strongjaw. But
Okay.
one time during campaign 1, like Grog was talking about his family members, and he's like, "Yeah, my uncle Stonejaw." And so I forgot who it was. It might have been Ashley, and she was like, "Your uncle's name is Stonejaw Strongjaw," and so it just became like this bit. Um,
Oh, okay.
so
Okay, because
yeah,
I thought someone said it, and I remember being like, "Oh my gosh, like, did I have this wrong the whole time?" So anyway,
but no, that's all that was.
okay,
But yeah,
gotcha.
Strongjaw is the actual last name. And I also thought I loved how they wanted to include Robbie, which of course, but like
Yeah.
saying like you'll have to play, and I'm like, well, we don't know who he's gonna play, but I love that he is gonna be there, and I'm very curious to see who he's gonna play. It was nice of Sam to offer up Tyrion to him as well.
Yeah, and speaking of Sam, are we gonna see Veth? Was that is that her name? Veth?
Yes.
Because we're probably presumably not seeing her level 9 son go to the
Yeah,
moon,
yeah.
right? I mean,
I was kind of surprised when he played Luke in the
yeah, that's right.
reunion, but yeah. Because wait, didn't he like eat some potion or something that made him really strong?
I don't remember.
I feel like it was something like that. But yeah, I would think for something like this, he would replay his actual PC.
Mhm.
But who knows? Yeah, and I'm really curious who Dorian might play in the Mighty Nine one. I feel like there's some interesting options for Vox Machina.
Could he
Um,
play Essek?
yeah, I wondered that if, which I'm sure Matt would allow it if he wanted to.
Yeah.
But yeah,
He just, like, gets to pick a character, and Matt's like, you don't get to play any character."
it's like I want
He's
to
like,
play a
"Anthony."
dragon.
Yeah, Jamon Saor. He's not part of. Okay, I am. I'm him. Reminds me of, oh, man, you ever see that? It's weird how, like, the YouTube algorithm works, by the way. Sometimes, like, creators just disappear for, like, months on end, but I remember there was a season where, did you ever see XP to level 3? Any of his videos? I think you're muted, but
Oh, sorry. Yeah, yeah, I did.
so there was one he did. I don't know when it was, but it was a really funny one of like basically joking about like players' request, and it was like, "Hey, so what's your character idea?" And he's like, "I want to be a red dragon, adult sized." you know, he's
Ancient.
like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, sure." So I could see some joke like that with Dorian of like, "Yeah, I'm gonna play, whoever." And you're
Like
like,
I'll be the Bright Queen. Thanks.
yeah, I'm gonna be Predathos.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Which
um,
to cycle, not really cycle back, I guess. I think it was maybe Travis or Liam that was like, okay, so we are just up against the oldest, strongest mage to have ever
yeah,
lived.
yeah.
Which, speaking of the power disparity, Vox Machina and Mighty Nine got big things to deal with as well. But that's a good point. Like, if like how that level, the playing field doesn't seem level. So I wonder like how that's gonna actually work, and if there will be anyone else with them.
Well, I mean, if we think about it logically it would be, hey, let's send off these level 20 characters with your Rude as born person, and we'll go take care of it. I understand it like table wise, how it all played out the way that it did.
Yeah,
I love it though. I mean, it's the power disparity. It almost feels within reach now, though, with him at level 14. Um,
true.
I say within reach in the sense of like I can maybe see this playing out in a positive way for them. Obviously, like earlier on the campaign, it was like there's just no way. I do think it's kind of funny how in D&D, like the enemies are like kind of stable in their power, but the players are constantly like powering up,
Yeah,
and the enemies aren't like also powering up. Where you're like, "Yeah, we're level 14." He's like, "Yeah, I'm level 20 plus 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 now."
yeah,
So, but possibly Liliana could be,
yeah.
the one
That's
to turn the tide. So,
that's true. And I guess
yeah.
like action economy too. At this point, like if it is just lewdness, you know, I'm sure he'll have like layer actions and stuff. But yeah, I guess it is doable, especially if now I don't think it's going to be similar to Vestiges where they all go collect one, but especially we Orem just got a what I assume to be pretty big upgrade. Maybe if they snag a couple more of those before they go as well, could
Mhm.
help even the playing field.
Well,
Um,
and not to make it like any more difficult, but you mentioned lair action. They're going to the cocoon of Predatos, for lack of a better phrase, who's naturally probably going to be exerting its own will.
yeah,
So it's not just lewdness; it's
yeah,
lewdness and like sleepy Predatos. So,
yeah. And like,
um,
what if like I mean, Farron and Imogen are Root is born, and if you're that close to him, maybe he doesn't need your consent. Like maybe he can just
right,
turn them, which
right,
that would be very scary.
yeah,
Um, I've got like a lot of random thoughts here, but
yeah,
speaking of Predathos, I know that in the cooldown, I think it was Marisha maybe was positing that he is the Luxen. Which I know we've talked about, or I don't want to speak for you, but the like duality maybe of like Predathos and the Luxon, but I've never thought that they were the same thing. So how do you feel about that idea?
Um, Someone in our Discord made a great comment about this of um the Bright Queen basically describing the Luxon as like sort of the OG creator, and
Mhm.
then like for lack of memory, something to the effect of like dismantled or separated itself, and like
Yeah.
one day it will be brought back. And Marisha made a comment about this, and I think someone in Discord pointed it out too, of like maybe the reason the Luxon hasn't come back is because it's physically unable. Like where a large, whether either it itself is Predathos or a part of it that is known as Predathos was, rocketed into space, and so it physically can't, return because of that. Um, so yeah, I don't know. For me, it's hard to like answer the question because everything I know about the Lexan is like secondhand.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your reaction to it? What do you think about it?
Well, so let me make that same disclaimer. We like all we know is kind of like the creation myth that the Kryn believe. So like that might not be true. That might be completely made up for all we know. But basing on that, I don't think it can make sense for them to be the same thing. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the beginning of Downfall, was it not Predathos that was born from that fruit? Wasn't that the
We
implication that
we
you got?
I mean, yeah, we supposed it was, but it could
Yeah.
have also been just the origination of chaos in a place of like order. I don't know. I mean, it seems
Agreed.
like that
Like
was
agreed
Predathos.
that we don't really know what was happening there,
Right.
but as
Yeah.
it was as the details as they were presented to us, wasn't it
Yeah.
like a fresh presumably god, like this is how gods were, or they weren't called gods, but these entities of light, presumably this tree like birthed them and there was a new one
Yeah.
and someone went to check it out and got immediately destroyed,
Yeah.
and thus Predathos was
Yeah.
born is how I took it.
Yeah.
And not that Predathos just showed up there like as an already pre-existing thing that arrived. To me, I felt like he was born on that tree.
Yeah, and I like that theory also because at the end of the Tingar sequence, Brennan says to Laura's character, whatever the previous god of death's name was, that you've escaped, but inside you that this force will one day return.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a pretty clear indicator of it.
So
Um,
if that's true, then that couldn't be the Luxon because when the
right.
gods arrived on the planet, there were already the primordials and humans there. And again, we don't know that the Kryn's creation myth is true, but based on that, Exandria was barren. There was nothing there when the Luxon showed up.
Yeah.
Dismantled itself, birthed life on the planet. Then at some point later, primordials, are up. Then some point later, the gods arrive with Predathos.
Yeah.
Now, again, that doesn't mean that these things can't be true based on things we don't know or things that have been obfuscated or something. But if those two things are true, then I can't reconcile them for them to be the same entity.
Yeah, and I think there were, and by the way, as an aside, some of the fun of this stuff I love that they added the cooldown because it's really fun to realize that the cast is just as like, oh, what if it could be this?
Yeah,
Like as
yeah.
they're kind of like figuring out. It's just fun to like to sit and kind of watch that. But there was Dune, the Chained Oblivion. I think there was
Mm,
a comment from one of them, like, could it be that character? And there was even some like Reddit threads that popped up after the fact about that too. But it seemingly Matt, I think, addressed that specifically in the cooldown, saying like, no, they was doing something different. They were in the I think it was like they were in the calamity, and Tharizdun showed up, and they were like, I think Matt's phrasing was like, whoa, whoa, what the heck is this thing? um, Anywho, point being, there was a great Reddit thread that I read about theorizing that Predathos is one of the elder evils, ancient elder evils. And this is there's actually a section devoted to these in one of the CR
mm.
books. See if I can find it real quick. And by the way, this isn't for people who are listening. Maybe you don't play D&D. This concept of elder evils isn't a new thing. It's a not a 5e. It's a D&D thing. But I think there's actually mention of them in one of, I think in the Wildmount book. let's see.
Yeah, just very like
Yeah,
cosmic horror.
Yeah. Oh, yes, right. Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. Yeah. So there is a section about these. But one of the Reddit threads that someone pointed out was this could be Hadar, the Dark Hunger, because much of like descriptions of the descriptions around Imogen's character has been describing the pull and hunger and all that stuff, and it
Yeah,
doesn't really
and
matter.
that was
But
the description given to Orem too when he was experiencing that vision, just like the hunger that he couldn't even fathom.
right,
Um,
right. But anyway, people can check out that section in Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. But I've always been like a junkie for like the gods and like the good and evil, but then like the like uber evil, for lack of a better phrase, like way beyond conception, way beyond primordial. Like this is like the truly terrible, terrifying evils out there.
yeah,
Um, and whether this is a specific one or not, point being, I'm loving this theory of Predathos being one of these elder evils,
yeah,
um, which would be in line with the gods fearing them because it's, you know, it's a whole nother level of power, I guess. But
right. And yeah, it's just interesting in general, right? Because like the gods themselves, they might. I mean, when we were first introduced to them in Tengar, they wouldn't have described themselves as gods, right? Because that's just all they knew. So like, who made them? You know,
yeah,
like they aren't presented to be like the literal deities of this multiverse, universe, whatever we want to call it. So
right.
like, you know, so who's to say they're the top? They're, you know, could just be one of the bottom layers for all we know, you know, and then we got eldritch horrors and whatever, yada yada yada. But one thing I thought was really poetic, I guess, is I can't remember when it was said, but I think it was Ashton that said it, that talked about like how they were the perfect people to for this job because like maybe somebody compared them to the gods, like we're no better than the gods, and he's like, no, we are, because like they got one whiff of the potential of mortality, of like they might die, and they've freaked out. Like we're faced with that every day of our existence,
Yeah.
and it made me think that like yes, the gods are like separated from the mortals in that way, and that's kind of where the disconnect is a lot. Like even though the gods are fallible and stuff, there is that difference of like, well, they're gods though. Like they don't really have to struggle with these same things.
Yeah.
But Predathos would level the playing field. Like Predathos is like humanity for the gods, right? So it is just like kind of really I can't like encapsulate what I'm trying to say well, but
Oh, yeah. I'm with you.
like poetic that like, you know, maybe it is for the best that Predathos was out and kind of restored the correct order to things. Like maybe there shouldn't be these entities that are beyond it, beyond mortality in that way.
I mean, you're talking about like the age old back and forth that Bell's Hells continue to have. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a very compelling. I think some people are kind of tired of it, of like, oh, here's this conversation again. But like, it's just such a complex point of conversation that doesn't have a black and white answer. And so, and it's tough too, because it's like, yes, I think we all agree lewdness is bad, but like, I don't know, what he aspires to might is actually kind of good, I guess, or not good in the sense of like, you know, the people he's murdered along the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, to Ashton's point, like maybe it would be good for there to be like, you know, a little less hubris among the gods, or
Yeah.
and we actually, I kind of disliked Orem's get together with a wild mother of like, this is literally your best, this is your best option, and like you're not even going to talk to the guy. So, which I think
Yeah.
part of that is kind of Matt's stylistic choice. So I don't want to lean too heavily into that. But all that to say, I was almost a bit surprised at the Wild Mother's positioning towards Orem, of like just even that distance and gap of, you know, I'm not going to talk to you. Um, I'll show my emotions, I guess, and I'll show you this vision, but ultimately, like, you know, here's what you get. And you naturally gave him a really freaking cool sword, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I would just, for me, that's almost what I expected because that is in line with what Matt has always done, especially with the Wild Mother. I think it was Abria who first like actually gave
Yeah.
a voice to the Wild Mother, and then of course we just saw them in Downfall. So I think it would have been like it would have made sense if Matt decided to literally talk, but I do think that vision shed a lot of light, but it would have been awesome to have like an actual Q&A about some stuff. I wanted, which the series of events I don't think played out in a way. Well, no, right. It didn't play out in a way where the Luxon was front and center, but I want someone to ask the gods about the Luxon to see what they say about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and okay. So we were told that the vision that Orem got wasn't really like
literal.
a literal vision, but more of a representation of what happened.
Right.
A couple interesting things from that is that again, we can't say for certain, but presumably Predathos like arrived very, very shortly after the gods themselves did, if not at the same time. Right?
I didn't necessarily get that, but I'm open to it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I guess we don't know, especially in terms of a godly time frame. Maybe it was 600 years, but just presented as instantaneous. But yeah, sorry, my thoughts are going all over the place right now.
The detail that was interesting to me was Matt's line about a deal was brokered.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, what's the deal?
Well,
Because he said,
or go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I was going to say, he says a deal is brokered, two gods disappear, which is Vordo and
Ethidok.
But the deal, I'm like, did they go willingly almost? Or like what was the deal that happened to trap and, this primordial divine gate, I guess?
So take this with a grain of salt, but my understanding of that line was in reference to the deal brokered between gods and primordials.
Yeah, okay.
Like because we know they had to work together to create Ruidus.
Yeah, okay.
So that's what I took it to mean. Could have meant something else. Maybe with Ethidok and Vordo, for all we know, in terms of like
well,
a willing sacrifice to trap Predathos or something.
Yeah, well, because I presume this is before the schism.
Yeah,
and so when this deal was brokered, I was like, well, they're already working together, right? So, but I mean, I don't know. I will say our theory on the city being like maybe this was like the OG city that was, either worship Predathos or like was wherever Predathos was like lifted into the sky.
Yeah,
seems like that was the case.
I was going to disagree. I thought I was going to say, okay. Well, because to me, it was just the city that happened to be there.
Yeah. Okay.
Which, because, well, yeah, I guess we don't know. Especially since it wasn't a literal vision. I guess it could be either way, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Because, like, if it all happened real quick, then it's just wherever the falling star happened to land, right? But if there was hundreds of years in this vision, then perhaps wherever Predathos was at the time, perhaps in a city of his followers, then it would have been that. But it could also have just been the poor blokes who happened to live where he landed.
Yeah, that's true, actually. That's fair. Yeah.
But this is sort of on subject, but a little tangential. If Predathos was born of the tree, then I think it's kind of ironic that like he's their family too, but like they don't even like, but you know what I mean? Like the black sheep, which again, at this point, I don't think, Predathos has been chained away for however many millennia. He's not happy with them, but it is kind of messed up, and I guess he did just immediately start killing them as soon as he showed up, but like, who knows what would have happened if some empathy was shown or something. I don't know.
Maybe,
but again, maybe he's a cosmic horror that wasn't their family, and none of that's relevant.
Maybe he ate them first, and they were like, maybe he ate one, and they were like, you should really not do that again. And then he ate another, and they're like, all right, it's probably time for you to go.
We tried, yeah.
You probably shouldn't wait for a third one. That line to Orem though about something in you has broken or been taken root. Ooh,
Yeah.
I do not like that.
I don't
That
like that either, man.
man, I I do not like that.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of, Imogen or Fern maybe turning sides in the battle, like maybe there's something in Orem that could activate or something. I don't know.
It seems like more compelling than just like they're on like their third round of combat, and Matt's like, Orem, this next roll has to be at disadvantage, and you're like, ah, man,
Yeah.
like it feels more important than that.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know what. I just
Yeah,
don't
it
like how
definitely
much.
doesn't feel good though.
Yeah, I don't like how much this party has sacrificed.
Yeah.
And then like I'm like, can we get? I don't know. I just want everyone to get their cabin in the woods at the end of the story, I guess.
Yeah. Except not that horror movie Cabin in the Woods, right?
I never saw it.
It was a pretty good like satire actually.
That's what I heard.
Um
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean Orem, speaking of, is basically already traded his life away, even if things go great, to grandmother Maury,
Hmm.
unless something happens with that.
Hmm.
At least Laudna got her win in the Delilah situation. So we got
Yeah.
that going for
Sure.
us.
Going back to Orem though, and this is like a question I think for anyone listening to, but especially obviously for you, Will. Do we think there's any chance that Orem was being manipulated
By the
in
Wild
this
Mother?
by the Wild Mother? Like
I guess possible. Like at least like
something like bringing like having Will show up.
yeah, yeah.
Be like, I'm here too.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Part of me kind of was like, this would be pretty compelling to like get someone to do something you want, especially if they're your best shot. Um, which I don't think that's necessarily what's happening, but I also wonder like how trustworthy. Like this is the Wild Mother's survival on the line.
Mhm.
Um, and we just saw in Downfall the ends justify the means. So could a little bit of that be happening here?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Like manipulated has like some strong connotations, but I definitely think that like Wild Mother was doing kind of what suited her best. And maybe that's also for the best for Orem, and we can take that into consideration. But I think definitely priority numero uno is going to be the Wild Mother. And, I think that's
Yeah,
obvious. So, in your mind, and I know you're not saying this is happening, but if it was manipulation, are you saying that like that wasn't even will?
maybe. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, I don't necessarily think that, but I also part of me wonders, where I'm like, how do we seal the deal? And here's Will with him saying, I want you to do this.
Yeah.
I also don't know how brutal Matt is in like previous campaigns of like hoodwinking someone in that way. So while that would be maybe something that I would do, I don't know. I don't know what Matt would necessarily
Yeah.
do.
I don't think it's happening to that level of maliciousness. I think
Yeah.
it's kind of like both things are true, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I would believe that that was Will. We know that he, was a follower, and probably, it's definitely in the Wild Mother's best interest. So it kind of just, she can make it appear as if maybe she's not only looking out for herself, and it just kind of works out that way.
Mhm.
But I did like the whole way that like kind of relationship was represented, in terms of like, you protect us and we protect you. Like my power only exists because of those of you on the planet that are
Mhm.
like stewarding my domain. Like it's only through your worship that I can then, like the whole thing with the statue, basically, like the symbolism there. That all made sense to me. And I would say that historically, the Wild Mother is one of the prime deities, one of like the nicer ones. We obviously saw like a very rough version of them in Downfall, but I also think that version makes sense
Mhm.
in that setting where like the world and nature had been destroyed. Um, so I'll give the Wild Mother the benefit of the doubt, but we know that it's only in her best interest as well. So that kind of colors it a little bit.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but I did like how Orem didn't just come out of that being like gods. He still was very basically in the same spot that he was before. Like it didn't really move the needle for him, I would say.
I kind of disliked that, only in the sense of like you have Brace being like, "This would be a great time to lock in your covenant here," and he's like, "I'm good," and it was kind of just like, "All right, we're still not, we're still kind of just to the gods," Which props to Sam for still like, you know, I'm committing, whether
Yeah.
it's good or evil. So I understand, or like it's not like out of character for me,
Hmm.
but it would just it would for whatever reason I feel like it would make it more compelling if it wasn't just Sam being like, because otherwise it's just created kind of like this like muddy like sandy foundation around like save the gods or not, which we know they've pretty much all come out and been like, yep, we're gonna do this.
Hmm.
And not that it's like begrudging, but I don't know, it's not, it's like, all right, we'll do it because we have to, not because like I believe in the ideals. It's not like, I feel like if Pike was part of this journey, it would be a little bit of a different motivation or steadfastness around the goal rather than like, well, Lunas is really evil, so we should probably deal with that.
Yeah.
That's just my personal opinion. So
No, I get where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from for sure. I would love to, I'd love to hear talk about this is Caduceus, which I don't know if we might see the Mighty Nine likely, but I don't know if like we'd get that bit of RP. But that because he's very devout to the Wild Mother.
yeah, okay.
But yeah, I'm with you. I think that's been a recurring kind of, I don't want to say pain point, but how no one has really been strongly on either side of this debate the whole time, really.
Well, I mean, as a good DM, like if your players, if the characters they created aren't that, then like as a DM, there's only so much you can do around that. So I think everyone's playing with the plot threads that are there as best they can.
Yeah.
And
I
it would
also
be
think
really
sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
no, go ahead.
It does make for a compelling like agent in this
Yeah,
debate, having somebody that isn't
right,
one way or the other. I
right.
think they even talked about that, how they are the best ones for this job because of that type of thing. So I
Yeah,
think they've played with that dynamic nicely, but just in like a hypothetical scenario, it would have been interesting to have somebody more like firmly planted to like,
yeah,
I don't know, squeeze those RP muscles in these situations.
yeah.
One thing that I thought was really interesting that I felt like didn't really get it now talked about a little bit, I think in the cooldown too, but when Aurum rolls his really high history check on the birth heart, and we get this kind of explanation that is again similar to the Luxon myth. We don't know this as hard canon. It's just what is believed in these cultures that before the gods, there was just like this infinite cycle of like the soul
Yeah,
dies, it gets reincarnated,
right.
basically. But when the gods came, that stopped, and instead souls were ferried off to these gods' domains.
Yeah,
That's kind of, especially since only half the gods are good, you know?
yeah,
Half of souls are now being like tortured for infinity, as opposed to in the prior system, they got to keep churning.
yeah,
Like, it seemed like the first system is better for more people?
yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I feel like that's an interesting kind of moral thing that wasn't really that discussed. Like, why are the gods doing this to these souls? Why, like, and is that disrupting the natural balance of things?
Yeah,
But
I guess the matron would have the best answer to
yeah,
that. The matron seems pretty confident in her role and like this being, and it wasn't like a compelling point too at some point in this campaign of like, or maybe not actually. I think Abria maybe even talked about it of like in the absence of the matron, like souls will go where they should go. Though this makes it a little bit more convoluted of like, well, where they should go? Is it truly to the gods' domains, or
yeah,
is there a return that's was intended to happen? You know, I don't know.
yeah. There's just some interesting like philosophical questions, which may not ever touch the light of day. May not even be something Matt intended, but like
Right.
if the souls were in a continual cycle, then you would think there's like probably a finite amount, maybe. But if they're now being siphoned away, like
Mm.
what creates new souls? Like
Well,
I don't
I'm
know.
glad you asked. So the way that I, I don't know. What was the
Sugar,
Disney
spice, and
movie?
everything nice.
I was gonna reference that Disney movie. I can't think what it's called.
Soul.
Oh yeah, Soul. Thank you. So I was about to Google it. So judging by my history of Soul. So anyway,
glad you asked. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting just piece of, again, it's, we don't know it as canon, but interesting piece of lore there. Yeah, I just wonder if we'll like get to explore any of these things or if they'll remain ambiguous like that. And I know that some of them mentioned they wanted to talk to other gods. I really hope that happens.
I mean, Ashton, I think, wanted to talk to the matron, right? Or
think so. And it seemed like, well, it first seemed like Imogen wanted to talk to the Stormlord, but then didn't.
Right. Sorry, it's like so hot in this room that I thought I turned the fan on, but it didn't turn on, but now it is on.
No, you're good. Which I don't know if she still will, but I liked that. Like in the absence of Predathos, like the Stormlord makes like a lot of sense for, I don't want to say her patron, but like, you know. So I want to see that. I would love to see somebody talk to the matron, be it Ashton or whoever. Any other gods really. Like Breus, if you got a chance to talk to Asmodeus, would be incredible.
Brennan just comes in and sits down.
Wait, which, speaking of, I have loved Breus's presence in this party. Like you already alluded to it, that he's kind of the only one that is firmly in that area. And also, let me preface this by saying I know Sam is dealing with a lot in terms of his throat and his voice, but I felt like Breus had a different like accent tonight, or not tonight, but I loved it. It was like this like smooth like molasses, and I was here for it. So did you notice that too?
Oh yeah. We were talking about it in the live chat of like, okay, Breus, I'm into it.
Yeah, so I was a big fan of that. But yeah, I'm just curious to see, like, you know, they asked if he would betray them, and he spun the bottle, but then he kind of like explained what he meant.
He came back after, I think, like maybe after the fact, and was like, I won't. You don't have to worry about me. But yeah,
I mean, I don't think he has like plans to betray them, but I do think it would be very interesting if something did come up that kind of positioned him awkwardly due to his faith. So I'd be excited to see something like that. And on that same notion, Fern, the question where she spun the bottle, I think it was basically like, would you side with Ludinus to save us type of thing. And I think she would. Like, I think if it came down to it, like she would do the evil thing to save her friends.
Yeah, there were some like clarifying questions she asked in this, but yeah, something to that effect. I think you're right. I couldn't quite remember it.
Yeah, that's the impression I got. And then she revealed that she had rolled a natural 20, aka that she could lie. But then instead of saying anything, she just spun the bottle. So to me, that was telling of like, she would accept that deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of interesting dynamics at play here.
Yeah.
I hope, like, I don't hope Fern sides with Ludinus, but I do hope there's some more, like, if and when they meet up with him again, because that, like, he has some cards up his sleeve, non-combat style. I mean, like,
I think, and Travis, I don't know if it was in a cooldown or if it was through Chetney. Travis said as much, maybe 2 episodes ago, of just, and I'm butchering because I remember exactly what he said, but he said something to the effect of like, hey, we can assume that Ludinus, like, we don't know the whole plan. Like, we can assume there's more to this than what meets the eye. Like, he does have those, cards up the sleeve, which I'm kind of excited to see. What does Matt have in mind? I don't know if you were saying this, but for me, I don't envision just like a straightforward boss battle. Like, let's fight and kill Ludinus. Like, I see some things getting, some decisions being made and some complexity being there. And, and there's this message from Liliana too, that in the cooldown, like, they seem pretty suspicious of. Like, she seems a little more upbeat than I expected.
Oh yeah, we haven't even talked about that.
So
yeah,
I don't know if she's been made or what, but
yeah, it's very strange because she, like, I guess we don't know that Liliana did it, but the storm dispersed, right?
Yeah.
Which yeah, it's very sus. You know,
Yeah.
I don't really know
Yeah.
what to make of it. Honestly, it very much could be like the Weave Mind or somebody messing with her,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Because what I was about to say is that it feels like it has to be either Liliana or Imogen that's the vessel. Like I feel like
It
there's
seems
not
like
really a third. Like who else would it be at this point?
yeah, it seems like Ottohan was maybe an option.
Yeah.
Uh, Fern is an option, I guess, but
Well, she's not
despite
exultant though, right?
true,
I guess, but I
actually,
guess we don't know that you have to be. Like I
right,
guess that's never been
true,
said.
but yeah, oh man, what was I just about to say? I lost my train of thought.
Liliana, the dream, Weave Mind.
I presume this is why Ludinus didn't just like kill them and at the event after downfall of like,
Yeah.
come join me if you want, and like also like I should probably keep Imogen alive in case I need her.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
think that's definitely part of the reason for sure. So, yeah, yeah, I don't know. It makes me wonder that like because it doesn't seem that Liliana would have just decided to change her ways. We already know that they kind of like mended their relationship maybe is a bit strong, but like Imogen got through to her. And
mhm.
yet Liliana was still I think this is for the best, basically. Like she was still about the mission, kind of regardless.
Right, and Matt has seemingly signaled pretty well, clearly that hey, she's pro kill the gods.
Yeah.
So it's a weird dynamic of like, I think she like promised to like give them some information or something or like be in touch,
Yeah.
which she hasn't done yet, but presumably still on Ludinus's side.
Yeah.
So that's a weird dynamic because I don't envision. And earlier I did mention like that'd be a convenient NPC to kind of level the playing field, but it's also like a little illogical that she would just like, all right, down with Ludinus, let's stop Predathos. I don't know. So
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why, like, because she's still like about the mission, I don't think that this vision dream now would be like her having decided to turn against him. And if that's what's presented, I definitely think it's like a trick.
right,
But it could be like you just mentioned, her sharing information because she said she would do that. So like maybe this is her doing that. And like
yeah,
I guess that would make sense. It's interesting that it's happening right now when she's not asleep though.
right.
Like when
Which
it
has
first happened, I thought it was going to be the Storm Lord. Like I thought the Storm Lord was contacting Imogen after she had like questioned, how do
yeah,
I reach him? So then when it was Liliana, I was like, wait, what's happening here?
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
I don't know what to make of that really.
And I don't think we've had something like this where when she's not sleeping, where
Yeah, I
she
don't
has,
think I think it's the first time.
yeah. So interesting.
Sus.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, to your other point about not seeing Liliana like side with them at the end in that type of scenario, the only way I could see that happening is like, yes, Liliana is still about the mission, but like Imogen's dying or like in danger or something, and so like that's why she still helps anyway, even though she still is team kill the
Yeah.
gods or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
Um, let me
I was gonna
just
say,
go
what
to my
else?
notes real quick. Bum, ba-dum, bum. Um, oh yeah, one other I forgot to mention this when I was talking about it, but when we were talking about the souls and how they used to reincarnate prior to the gods showing up,
Yeah.
that reminded me of the Luxon because we know that Luxon beacons recycle souls and the same people have new lives over and over and over. So I thought that was kind of an interesting like puzzle piece
Mm.
fit that like before the gods it was about recycling, which is also what the
Hmm.
Luxon represents, who was supposedly before the gods.
Right.
Um Also, I hope we just get I hope we find out more about the Lux in all of this, but maybe that ship's kind of sailed at this point. But if we do get like a post,
Well, isn't it like a key piece of Dunamancy too?
yeah,
Isn't the Lexan? So I mean, that seems like also just a greater story thread too. So
Yeah, like all
And
Dunamantic magic was like derived from studying the beacons and stuff.
yeah.
Um, so
So
I would love to get, even though it may not be the best for Ashton, I would love the, I would love the conversation between him and the Bright
I,
Queen if that ever happens.
I just loved him being like, check this out. I just thought, can we be subtle? Is that a thing? Or
Yeah.
anyway, he doesn't seem too worried though.
Also, this reminded me who there was like the recurring joke of like, let's not tell anybody about the Ruidian backdoor, Chetney. And I couldn't remember who he told. What are they like referring to with that?
When they were having the meeting, in I think the bigger meeting, there were comments around like the bloody bridge and like what we would do. And Chetney said something to the effect of like, oh, we have it, like we have an answer, like we would know what to do, or something like
Mm.
that. To which like everyone was like, well, what is it? And like then the rest of the party were like, no, we don't. And then I think you had to make like a deception roll, and it was really
Okay. I
bad.
guess I just missed that.
Yeah, it was like a bad roll, and so they were like, okay.
Okay,
So
Chet.
I think that was the comment of him realizing, and I think actually Travis actually above the board was like, my bad, guys.
Yeah, they kept
So
bragging on him for it, and I was like, I don't remember
yeah.
when he let that slip. But okay,
It was
yeah.
yeah, the joking was very Worlds Beyond-esque of like Ame doing something, and then the next scene, Suvi and Ursulon being like, I know Ame would never give away the plan,
Yeah.
So anyway,
Which, speaking of, I just finished that episode, um, the
good.
juicy one.
Very good. Very good stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But yeah, I think that's all I've got. I mean,
Okay.
probably forgetting some stuff, but
Well, you guys listening, check out our watch party Thursday night. It's such a great, fun group of people who love CR, and we just react and talk about the episode as we're watching. And we'll have our one shot on Friday evening. We have our stream on Friday. And then Worlds Beyond early next week.
yeah.
So anyway,
Pop pop.
thanks for listening.
Alrighty, y'all. Have a good one.